everybody. In this Friday's Function series, I'm going to talk a little bit about this new feature that was released by Steven just this week, return data to PowerApps from her flow. I was really impressed with this new feature because it gives us such amazing opportunities. And what it involves is a brand new action available in Flow that enables you to get input responses from PowerApps when you run flows or trigger flows from your app. So I want to kind of show you how this works so that you can understand how to use it. But as you think about this, think about the opportunities you have to use this new, there's a template in there called PowerApps button that you can edit and add this function to. Kind of get used to using buttons in PowerApps, but I'm going to show you how to do that quickly today. And then here's the new the options. You can get input that is text, file, or email. Very interesting. I expect that the Flow team will probably release some documentation on all three options. So we'll be able to do a kind of a query to a connective. So maybe ask PowerApps to go ask Flow to go ask a question somewhere else, and then Flow will come back with that information. Maybe that could happen. We can easily provide feedback to our users. I know in the past we might have used those PowerApps button, but it kind of like after you press that button, you kind of basically have to go somewhere else to find out what happened. Like you kind of wish and dream that something happened, but you don't know for sure. But now if we're having Flow do an operation from a button trigger, we can give feedback to the user, and I'll show you how I did that later on in this demo. And then also this enhances the custom API experiences because it enables you to use those custom connectors and get back responses into PowerApps whenever you're using Flow. So a lot of great opportunities here. I think the thing is to kind of get your creative juices going on it, and feel free to post on the Flow site or on the PowerApps site how this can evolve in your business scenarios. Okay, so I'm going to start by just showing you how it works, all right? And what I'm going to do is create a silly little app just to demonstrate the functionality that goes and checks the weather. That's all. So I'm going to add some things to my screen here. Very simple app. Now, we all know that PowerApps will definitely connect to MSN Weather directly, but for the sake of this video, we're going to do it using Flow, okay? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to name this button Get Weather. And this is going to be the button that's going to be triggering the flow. And I'm just going to name this button Weather. And we're going to put this button right here in the middle of the screen and make it nice and easy to read so you can see this happen. I want you just to focus on how this works. And especially for those of you who have never run a flow from a button, this little demo is very helpful. Now I'm also going to insert a text input box, which enables me to kind of indicate what my zip code is. So where am I in the world? I'm just going to put 98052, which is my zip code. Another thing you could definitely do is you could use, and let me just show you that, you can use a control like a drop down. And in that case, I might want to give the user some zip codes from a database of some sort. So I'm going to call this drop down zip code. And then they can actually come in here and choose the zip code that they want. Let's put 2 in here. Let's put where I am right now. It's going to be the default value. And then I'm going to put one in from New York, okay, that I remember from when I lived there. So that's going to give us 2 choices. But of course, this drop down could be connected to any data source and give the user a chance to pick their location very easily from this one drop down. Okay, so that's the location drop down. Underneath here, I want to actually get that weather out. So I'm going to use a label here. And in that label, I'm going to put the weather conditions, right? I'm going to put the weather conditions in here. And let's make that, let's say about this wide. And let's top align it. You know, we're just doing those of you that are new to PowerApps, these kind of little tricks show you kind of things you can do. I'm going to the label menu here and I can do vertical align top. And then I can make sure, I can even do auto height so it'll grow and shrink the way it wants to. I'm going to change the font size here to a little bit more so we can see it better. Okay, so that is going to be my weather conditions. This is where I'm going to have Flow bring back the weather conditions. And finally, I'm going to copy and paste that just to save myself a little bit of time and make this kind of longer, because what I'm going to put here is a way to read the full weather report, right? Read the full report. Okay, I'm going to do a daily report, and I'm going to put the URL in this area here. So I'm going to actually make this considerably smaller and longer so that the URL fits in there nicely. Okay, and let's get started going to get our flow. So I've decided that none of this looks good in the middle, so I'm just going to pull it up to the top here, and we're good to go. All right, so of course, if this was a real app, I'd probably save it first, just to make sure everything is nice and neatly saved before I start building new things. And in this case, I'm going to build a flow directly from my button. So we're going to save that and then go back. And now I'm going to click on my button. So whatever the trigger is going to be, this needs to be clicked on first. I'm going to click on the action menu, and I'm going to choose flows. Okay, and let's go ahead and build this flow together. This is an easy one. I'm just going to click on the bottom, create a new flow. And when I click create a new flow, I am launching into the flow designer so that I can continue my design. Now it starts out letting me know that it already realizes that I'm launching or triggering this from a PowerApps button, and so it gives me that trigger. And now I'm going to go ahead and add an action. Now I could definitely go here and add Office 365 users, which could pick up profile properties and other things about the user, such as their location, automatically. But just for the sake of the demo, I'm going to do this quickly. I'm going to just type in MSN, and I'm going to get the forecast for today. And I'm going to allow that drop down to be the place where they get the location. All right. Now, what the name of this is can be changed. But just remember, if you do not rename this, any dynamic fields that you create while building your flow will capture that name as a prefix. So watch this. I want to get the location from PowerApps. So with my mouse inside there, I'm going to click Ask in PowerApps, and it's going to create a parameter for me that I will see later in PowerApps. And that is the get forecast for today, the location parameter. Okay, so it just prefixes it with the action name. So sometimes I'll rename my actions in order to get the parameter names neater in PowerApps, because they will be important for the person making the app to be able to understand the parameters. If this flow asks me for location again, I don't have to keep clicking X in PowerApps. I can keep using that parameter over and over and over again, which will shorten the formulas in PowerApps. Okay, and now that I've got this indicated where I am, I'm going to go ahead and use our brand new function, which is a PowerApps action. So I find it easiest to search with PowerApps. And then once it finds all the PowerApps things, I'm going to choose the first one, which is the brand new one at the top. Please check out the other ones. They're really cool. And I'm going to choose add an output. So I'm going to add 2 text outputs here. I'm going to add conditions, because that's what we plan to add. And we're going to get that from the MSN connector variables. They have one called conditions. And then I'm going to add another one. And I'm expecting, like I said, that we're going to get more documentation on these other 2. Today we're going to talk about these text variables and conditions. And the other one will be, what did I say? It was going to be a link to the full report. And what I'll put in there now, notice that I call that link to website. What I'm going to stick into that output variable is the link to the, it's called click-through link in MSN. Okay, so what you type in these boxes right here are what going to be the output variables that will come from this response. So what's really cool about this is you pick what you're going to get back to PowerApps and you name it whatever you want. It makes the formula a lot easier. Okay, now I could do a whole bunch of other things, but I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And one thing I didn't do that I should do is usually what I like to do is I like to rename it. And the reason I like to rename it is because it'll be easier to find in PowerApps, right? Now I might be in, let's check. I'm not sure what tenant I'm in, but normally we will see the close, but we're good here. I'm going to go back to PowerApps and you'll see it pop up on the bottom here. And I bet you it's that one that says PowerApps button because I didn't name it over fast enough. So let's go ahead and use it. I can tell it's not I didn't name it fast enough because it's the last one there. It kind of popped up at the bottom. And then when I click on it, it goes ahead and adds it. And then it reminds me I need to fill in the function. I need to finish the parameters, right? So it put the beginning of the function in the function bar for me. I can close this down and I can go into my function bar and notice there's the one thing it needs is the location. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dd zip code dot. You can also do longitude and latitude here. So I'm taking the selected value of that drop down to be my parameter. Now, we need the response, don't we? Right? So if I leave it just like this, all it will do is go get the weather, but I won't get it back, right? I need to be able to have a place to pull it out of in my Power App. So what I'm going to do is wrap the set function around this. Just simply wrap the set function around this. And what this will do is enable me to name a variable. I'm going to call it my weather response. Of course, I can make that a whole lot shorter. But I just want to be really clear that this can be anything you want to name it, but that is the variable that holds the entire response. So anything you typed in that response action, no matter how many lines of responses you got, will be stored into my weather response when this is triggered. However, the good news is even though we haven't clicked on the button, those parameters are now understood by PowerApps. So if I go to weather conditions, I'm going to click on weather conditions. Let's make this a little further down here. Okay, so I'm going to click on weather conditions and go to the text property of that. And then I'm going to put an and sign here after weather conditions. And I'm going to type, and you'll see it come up, right? My weather response. Now, the reason why there's only one is not because we're helping you find this parameter. It's because I don't have any other data in this app. This app has no other data than what's coming from Flow. And that's fine, right? So I type the name of the variable, hit a dot. And when I hit that dot, you will see the two things that I typed in the respond to PowerApps action in Flow. And I can use them separately, of course. So now I'm going to put conditions. Now this doesn't say anything yet, right? But it's because we didn't press the button yet. We don't have a response yet. We have the parameters available, but we don't have a response yet. On this one, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put an and statement. So all I'm doing is connecting the read the full report with the response, which in this case, I want the link to the website. But I'm also going to copy that again because I want this to be clickable to go to the website. So I'm just going to go to the launch property, the onSelect property of this, and use a launch function to launch that URL. So launch, in the middle of launch, what's the address? It is that link to website. Okay, so now when I click on this, it will just go to the website. All right, so let's try it. I'm going to click this. I'm going to get my weather. You can see that it got light, and now the little ants are running on the top of the screen, and then seconds later, we can see that it's mostly sunny in 98052. And if I want to read the report, now I could have definitely put this under an icon because it's just kind of a weird looking URL, but I wanted you to see what it looks like anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Notice it also picked up my region. So you should try this, those of you that are in different regions. And I'm going to click on it. And when I click on it, a tab will open the weather. And there is the weather. And you can see what's going on here, right? We're looking good. Goodbye, winter. All right. So that's how this works. Now, I want to give you a sneak peek at what I did with this, because what I think is awesome about this is not only can I get information back from Flow and any kind of information, I can query connections like we did with MSN here. We just kind of asked a question and brought it back. I can also give my users feedback, you know, like if they run a flow and they want to know that it succeed. That's probably the most common one I'm going to use, is a way to give my users confirmation that the flow ran and here's the result of what happened outside of PowerApps. But also, thirdly, this really expands things for professional developers who are doing custom AI APIs and custom connectors, because now they can send back to PowerApps different things using their customizations. So I really love this. But let me show you what I did. I'll give you a sneak peek, and then if you want to see a walkthrough of this, it is totally possible. I decided to create a form in SharePoint. And what I'm going to do with this form is I'm going to solve 3 problems. So the thing about SharePoint and forms is we released recently attachments, and attachments are awesome things to see. However, they don't protect the list. And what I mean by that is the heavier your attachments are, I'm going to give you 3 different challenges. The heavier your attachments are, the more likely your list will slow down as it gets big, as it gets really large. So we really do need to be aware of the file sizes of attachments because it can make our list get really heavy and hard to back up. That's 1. 2, I find that when you have an attachment, it's really hard to do any kind of document review because attachments, they open differently. They have to be downloaded, blah, blah, blah. So it's really hard to run a review process around an attachment. In a document library, I have the ability to add metadata to that document without having to add it to the list item. And so basically document libraries can improve discovery as well. I mean, list attachments definitely have their place, but in the past, I've actually been asked to do code behind on the InfoPath form that when they upload the attachment, the code behind would remove the attachment from the form and put it in a document library. And that was back in the days when we did sandbox solutions with InfoPath. And that kind of coding behind an InfoPath could take a day or 2, right? But now, in minutes, we can configure the same kind of thing here, where we can have attachments added and then move them to a document library using just PowerApps and Flow. And what I'm also going to do here to show off the respond to PowerApps, the return values to PowerApps, is I'm going to give the user feedback on what was moved. All right. So let me just show you how this works. I'm going to just do a form here. I'm actually going to request it myself. This form is designed to allow you to submit a form for somebody else. But I'm going to go ahead and start this. This is a travel request form. So I'm going to say that the travel is going to start on April 23rd. And then it's going to end on April 30th. And the estimated cost of this trip is $5,000. And the travel type is domestic. Now, notice that I have nothing down here. But in our company, in our make-believe Contoso company, whenever it's a conference, they will not agree to giving us this trip if we don't upload a draft PPT. They want to know, what are you going to talk about, right? What's it going to be about? I think I already have something for Ignite. So let's do data insights here. It pops up a little red, a little folder icon, and it says request without draft PPT file will be denied. So right away, don't even get your hopes up. You're not going anywhere if you don't upload a PPT file. And of course, my manager's not that mean, but I thought I'd make that up for this scenario. And so I'm going to go into my documents. I think I have some PowerPoints around here somewhere. Kind of do that every now and then. And I'm just going to pull in a PowerPoint file. Now, this attachments control itself has a couple of things going on. It has a limit of 2 files. So watch when I add one more. I'm going to add one more. Just going to add a PPT file, a PDF with that. Now there are 2 files. So underneath it, it says max number of files reached. And that's because the control has 2 types of limitations you can set. 1, how many files they can upload, and 2, how big each file can be. So this really helps also in managing performance and making sure that your lists don't get too heavy or impossible to back up. Okay, so now that I have those files, that's all you can see on the bottom. I'm scrolled all the way down because now I have to save. It is the save action that puts those attachments on the list item. And so we're going to have a new list item for data insights, and that new list item will have 2 attachments. So let's imagine the admin who handles this list, they got some kind of push notification that says, hey, somebody put in a new travel request, and they go and they open this travel request form. They see the attachments on the bottom, but because the review cycle happens in a document library, what they're going to do is click on our flow button that says move files to library. When they click on the button, the flow is going to do a couple of things. It's going to go take those attachments and copy them to a document library. It's also going to associate the ID of this list form with those documents so that we can query the document library whenever we open a form. And it's also going to give us a response back with the new feature, letting us know that 2 files were uploaded. And I actually made these 2 file icons, and I probably should have put the file name too, but I just did 2 icons. And if you click on the icon, it will actually open the file in the browser that you've uploaded. Okay, so it does open. My browser might be a little mean to me right now. And here it comes. It's just being a little slow. Yep, it's being really slow. So it's open, promise you. We come back to this tab and look at it later. It's just a matter of latency here. And if I click on the go back to SharePoint button, what's going to happen, what's going to happen is it's going to do hide the panel and close that form. All right. Now, so I'm going to go in here and edit this item. Show you one more thing I added to this form. Just having a bunch of latency. Could be my browser. My internet connection could be getting slow over here. So I'm just going to open this up. Here's one of the forms. It has no attachments right now, but if I click on this folder icon, it says view existing files. Then it will open up a screen that will show me all the files that are associated to this form. And this is just a gallery that's querying that document library. It's going to look up any file that has the same ID as this list item. So this is list item number 5. That's the ID number of this list item. And it has thumbnail and a PowerApps meeting email. So let's go look at the actual library. Now I can click on this to open the file. And let's see if our browser is a lot friendlier with the ping than it is with that PDF. Probably the PDF is really big. That could be the other thing. It can't be any larger than 10 megs because I think I limited it to 10 megs. Or the PDF might be a bad PDF file. But yeah, this works. It's not a problem when you click on the links. I'm going to go back to the form and then close it. And let's go take a peek at that document library. So I'm going to go into Site Contents. and I'm going to open up the library. Now, one thing I want to stress with this that I really liked is not only did they get confirmation that their files are moved and links to them so they could, if they wanted to copy those links for their own use later on, but they didn't have to go figure out where to put their thing, right? Some people have worked around the fact that, you know, they want to do document review cycles for list items, and they've worked around that by telling people, go upload your file to this library over here after you fill out the form. The problem is with that is now they've got two places to go. In this situation, Flow knows which library it should be in, and this could even be a switch case or a condition. In this case, if they choose this, then put it in this library. If it's this, that, put it in that library. And remember that although I'm using the same team site, Flow can handle to putting these documents anywhere, right? Anywhere within the scope of the software of a service connections that it has, right? And so definitely within your tenant, any site that you have access to, it can put that file in. And what's cool is that you can run actions in Flow that apply to a different account than the person consuming the app, because the actions can be associated to an account. So that account on that action that's actually taking that file and putting it somewhere else might have elevated permissions over the person running the Power App. So very interesting, a lot of opportunities there. But you can see that the thumbnail here is associated to number 5, and the PowerApps meeting email is associated to number 5. And so the gallery was just looking those up. All right. So you want to know more about this, just put a comment below. I plan to demo this to our internal groups and our advisors groups, but feel free to let me know you'd want a full Friday Functions video on how this was done. I love the new features coming out in Flow. Flow has been rocking it. You know, they've been really doing some cool things. Check them out, try them out. My favorite thing on the Flow blog is actually the Flow of the Week, and I bet all of you are doing that. But, you know, I had to talk about this one because this is all about how PowerApps and Flow team up like family. So you guys enjoy this, and I'll be talking to you at the next Friday Functions video. There'll be 3 this week, so get ready for that. Talk to you soon. Ciao.